Masturbation is majorly caused by pornography, and in today's world, pornography is almost everywhere. And research says that pornographic sites are the most visited sites, and they are majorly visited by men. And when you Google about masturbation, you are told that masturbation is healthy. But then in this video, I want us to look at what happens when you continually feed your dopamine with masturbation. Does it have any negative effects on dopamine? And we are going to watch what Professor Jordan Peterson and Andrew said about masturbation and its effects when it comes to dopamine. So I'm hoping that this video is going to help you, and we are going to majorly focus on ejaculation in men. So without further ado, let's get started.
One of the absolutely pathologic situations for any animal or human is to be able to access repeated dopamine surges without effort or any pursuit that's self-directed or that's directed, I should say. So for instance, cocaine, a drug which potently increases dopamine, or methamphetamine, which potently increases methamphetamine, but doesn't require any sort of adaptive action pursuit except to acquire the drug and spend money on it.
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice. So essentially what ends up happening is the circuit that gets rewarded is only the drug-seeking behavior, and no other behavior will give the kind of potent dopamine release that cocaine or methamphetamine will, which is why they are so pernicious. Now, likewise, right. I'm not...
Well, plus they have that powerful reinforcing effect, right? So not only do you get that kick, but what's reinforced by the dopamine release is the behaviors that were right prior, particularly right prior to the ingestion. And if all that is the drug-taking behavior, that's all that develops.
That's right.
You build that monster inside your head.
That's right.
So I can see where you're going on the pornography.
Right. So I was starting to get a lot of questions. I was kind of surprised. I thought, well, I'm male, and maybe that's why they feel comfortable asking. But people were saying that we're asking about pornography, and they were asking, I realized we want to, I'll just be direct about it. They were asking whether or not masturbation was bad. They were asking whether or not masturbation with ejaculation was particularly bad. And here's my stance on this. I'm a biologist and a neuroscientist, not a psychologist. But what we know for sure is that if an individual repeatedly engages in this circuitry, let's say masturbation and pornography with increasingly potent forms of stimulation that are on a screen, a couple of things happen. First of all, what's being reinforced? What's being reinforced is a high dopaminergic response to watching other people engage in sexual behavior, which is very different than being in a first-person sexual experience. Okay, so right there, that what's being reinforced is not actually any kind of improvement in communication skills.
Voyeurism.
It's voyeurism. And as these questions started to come in more and more, I started to realize there was a lot of kind of undertones of people talking about fear of or experience with sexual dysfunction that clearly pornography can lead to. And here I'm specifically talking about males. I actually don't know the literature on females. So here I'm talking about...
Females don't use visual pornography to the same degree.
I see.
They use literary pornography.
I see. So and then you start to think about, okay, what happens in the cascade or the arc of sexual arousal and orgasm? What happens is that initially there's it's parasympathetically dominant, meaning if somebody is too stressed, they actually can't engage in sexual behavior. The arousal response doesn't occur. Erection is blunted, but the actual orgasm response and ejaculation is strongly associated with the so-called sympathetic nervous system, which has nothing to do with sympathy. It has everything to do with, it's a kind of a stress response. And then it reverses to a parasympathetic response. And a hormone called prolactin increases dramatically after ejaculation in males. What does that do? That blunts dopamine release and testosterone for a very long period of time, which makes sense if pair bonding and sort of, in our species anywhere, there's this idea that then other molecules will be exchanged with partners, pair bonding, potential for raising mates, etc. Without getting into a huge discussion about that, the point is this: masturbation and pornography are potently tapping into the dopamine system and can undermine the very processes of what I consider healthy processes of finding a mate, dating, communication, eventually, if it's appropriate, sexual interaction, etc.
Like it's undermining pair bonding.
And pair bonding.
So here's a question: if you're seeking sexual release through pornography and you go through the whole cycle and you get a prolactin release, do you bond with yourself?
So this is very interesting. The biology explains it as what's left there is a kind of an open loop, a kind of an emptiness. Right? Because bonding with the self is a complicated notion. I mean, there's a healthy version of that, of course, loving oneself and self-referencing. And again, this is more far more your domain than mine in terms of what a healthy self-relation is. But in the absence of a real partner there, absence of real sexual partner, there's an open loop of neurochemicals, including oxytocin and prolactin. The dopamine, remember, dopamine goes up during pursuit, anticipation, then peaks and then crashes below baseline after orgasm and ejaculation. So this kind of low that people fear is putting them into an amotivated state. We can think of this, if I were to kind of expand on it, would be it's this kind of neurochemical, psychological equivalent of making your home environment filthy for a while, not actually putting you into this positive amplification of dopamine. So it depletes the dopamine system. And it's likewise in drugs of abuse and addiction, it eventually depletes the dopamine system. Initially, there's a huge dopamine surge with drugs of abuse like methamphetamine and cocaine. But over time, people are using more and more to achieve what is not such a great high. You even see this a little bit with kind of consumption of energy drinks. Like people are taking more and more chemicals within their energy drinks, and they're thinking about loud, fast music, energy drinks. It's kind of stacking of dopaminergic tools. Now, that's not as pathologic. In fact, there are some energy drinks I'll occasionally drink and I enjoy them. I don't think we need to be entirely afraid of pursuing or engaging in things that release dopamine. Obviously, healthy sexual behavior, food that we love, social engagement, all of these things can be dopaminergic. It's the big peaks in dopamine that are not associated with any prior effort or organization of self that are particularly dangerous for the human being.
Yeah, well, you could see that's a cardinal danger of affluence. Then
that's right. This is why the children of
right?
That's right.
You cannot get rats addicted to cocaine if they live in their natural environments.
Is that right?
You can only get rats addicted to cocaine if they're isolated rats in a cage. Yeah, they won't bar press for cocaine in a natural environment, and it's because they have alternative sources of dopaminergic gratification.
Very interesting.
So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, the children of very wealthy people who are overindulged. I've seen that many times, many times, and it is a very sad sight.
Yeah, well, they're not optimally deprived, eh? And that issue of optimal deprivation, that's a killer issue for an affluent society.
There's an additional issue with pornography, which is not often discussed, which is that, remember, guys in particular, the brain is a learning prediction machine. And I'm not trying to say that all pornography is bad, but there are good data to support the idea that if your brain learns to be aroused by watching other people have sex, it is not necessarily going to carry over to the ability to get aroused when you're one-on-one with somebody else, right? Especially young kids who are consuming a lot of pornography, the brain is learning sexual arousal to other people having sex.
So you're going to program yourself into being a voyeur?
Or just create challenges in sexual interactions with peers, with a real partner. Right?
Mary Harrington has the 3 laws of pornodynamics, and the second law of pornodynamics is the law of FAP entropy. And it says that whatever you start out wanking to will get progressively more intense over time. And I think that this is sort of speaking to that ever sort of escalating amount of the wildness that you need to watch in order to get an ever decreasing stimulus that comes back.
And here I'm approaching this only through the lens of biology, right? I'm not a psychologist, and I'm certainly not political in any way. At least I have ideas about politics, but I just don't discuss them publicly. But the idea here is that I'm not saying pornography as a stimulus is bad or good. What I'm saying is, in its availability and its extreme forms, it's a very potent stimulus, and very potent stimuli of any kind, extremely palatable food, extreme pornography, extreme experiences like bungee cord jumping, those set a threshold for dopamine release. And Anna will tell you that, and I'm sure she did, that the higher the dopamine peak, the bigger the drop afterwards. And it's not that you drop to baseline, you drop below baseline. Again, it's not, these things aren't good or bad, they just have to be controlled in a way, because when people are pursuing dopamine peaks over and over and over and they aren't getting them, typically it's because they've been pursuing that activity far too often.
And you're saying perhaps take a break from that, and then maybe an ability for yourself, your system to reset.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in theory, all the things that we're talking about with pornography could be superimposed onto food, or could be superimposed onto real sex, right? That one also has to be cautious there, right? But the cycling back and forth between dopamine and low dopamine states, dopamine fasting as it were, but maybe just low dopamine states, these are natural rhythms that exist in the nervous system. We have to remember what the dopaminergic system is there for. I'll say it again, I wasn't consulted at the design phase, but we know as a generic form of motivation and pursuit. You can imagine the human or the animal that's hungry or thirsty. It needs energy to go pursue the thing. So the idea that you have to eat in order to get energy, that's true, but you need energy in order to get the thing to eat. So our nervous system has energy also, that's dopamine and epinephrine. Yes, we use glucose and glycogen, etc. when we're pursuing things, but the idea here is you're pursuing something, and then either by smell or by sight, you think you're on the right track. So you go down that track, and then, there it is. You get some berries, or you get, let's get prehistoric about this, or you get to kill the prey and eat it, and then it gives you energy to continue this pursuit or to reproduce. I mean, there's a reason why humans and other animals seek out reproduction, is that every species, but certainly humans, have 2 innate desires built into them. Whether or not they decide to actualize this or not is the desire to protect young and make more of its own species. Every successful species does that. Even if people don't have children, in general, people care about children.
Okay. They have extensively shared about the effects of masturbation on dopamine. And just a recap, you find that when you are used to masturbation and pornography, it is that you love seeing other people do the act. And this in return affects our bonding with other people. You find that You want to retreat from bonding with real people. You want to watch people who do it on the screen. So it affects our natural bonding, which, my friend, is a big problem. And that's why nowadays there is a rise in online dating. Why do we have such things? You find that people do not have the skills or the psyche or the guts to have the natural bonding. So a man cannot physically approach a lady. So what do? They run for online dating because they are confident when they are away from the presence of these guys. And so online dating has been, in my own opinion, increased because of pornography. And also this affects our healthy sexual behavior. And you find people who are addicted to pornography, even if they are in a relationship or even if they are married, they can have intercourse with their partner. But after that, they are not satisfied. What do? They go on and do masturbation for them to be satisfied. So we have self-satisfaction. So it makes them not to be satisfied with their partner. And you find that affects healthy relationships, and they may end up divorcing, they may end up breaking their relationship because the other partner will feel, if I cannot satisfy you as your partner, then why am I existing in your life? And this affects our relationship. So it affects healthy relationships. And you realize that when you continually feed your dopamine with anything, it makes you want to pursue that thing always. So, for example, if you feed your dopamine with pornography and masturbation, it makes you want to pursue that every single day. And therefore, this means that you cannot go without masturbation. You cannot go without pornography. So it will force you to always watch this, to always participate in this. And this generally affects our body. Yes, biology will tell you that masturbation is healthy, but to what extent should this go? When you reach to a level that you are addicted to this, then, my friend, you will suffer a lot of problems, and especially in your relationships. And you will just wonder why your relationships are not working. It's because you have been a slave to masturbation. And this is affecting today's generation. It is affecting men. It is affecting women to some extent. And we cannot just assume this. We have some behaviors that we see in the youth of today. And it is majorly because of pornography and masturbation. So I just felt like sharing with you this knowledge about masturbation and its effects on dopamine. And I hope that you are going to make a sound decision. If you are addicted to pornography and masturbation, it will be my advice that reduce on that. And if it is possible, completely do away with it. Otherwise, I would like you to share this video to your friends and those that you know, so that they can also get the knowledge about masturbation and its dangers on dopamine. Hey, you've reached the end of this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a like and also subscribe for more videos. Now, click here to watch our next video, and I'm pretty sure that I will see you in that video. Peace.